You're about to witness Karoline Leavitt, the youngest White House press secretary, go head-to-head with Hollywood legend Robert De Niro on live TV and flip the entire narrative. Buckle up, because what happens next will leave you speechless. Let's dive into the moment everything changed. The backstage corridor of the University of Texas auditorium buzzed with quiet urgency. Technicians adjusting earpieces, stage managers whispering countdowns, interns darting between monitors and dressing rooms. But in the far corner, beneath a glowing "On-Air in 10" sign, Karoline Leavitt stood perfectly still. Her deep navy blazer, crisp and form-fitted, caught the overhead light, but her mind was elsewhere, locked in the silence of prayer. One hand clenched tightly around her phone, the other around a rosary tucked inside her coat pocket. She was 27, the youngest White House press secretary in American history, and in 10 minutes she would walk into a political lion's den, a live, nationally broadcast debate called Voices of America, Truth on Trial. Her opponent, Robert De Niro, the 81-year-old two-time Oscar-winning Hollywood legend, famed for his mob roles, progressive activism, and for calling her Trump's Gen Z puppet just days earlier. From beyond the curtain, she could already hear the crowd murmuring, a blend of MAGA hats and liberal protest buttons reflecting the polarized audience. The stakes were impossible to ignore. Less than a week ago, Karoline had faced intense media scrutiny over a Signal messaging leak involving a classified discussion, an incident the press dubbed Signalgate. Though later proven to be a staffer's mistake, Robert had already twisted it into an accusation of incompetence. If she can't handle an app, he said on MSNBC, she sure as hell can't handle America's truth. Tonight he'd have the microphone first, and he was expected to use it like a sword. Karoline exhaled slowly, steadying herself. She wasn't just here to defend her reputation. This was bigger. This was her chance to stand alone, without Trump beside her, without a podium to hide behind, and prove she wasn't a mouthpiece but a force of her own. She turned to Talia Brooks, her quick-witted strategist who had been with her since the campaign trail. "You have the clip?" Karoline asked, her voice low but sharp. Talia nodded and held up the iPad. On the screen, Robert De Niro appeared, younger but unmistakable, smiling on CNN in 2016 as he said, "I like how Obama handles things. He's got vision." Karoline's lips curled into a tight, focused smile. Hypocrisy, she thought, is the oldest script in Hollywood. "Cue it," she said. "Play it the moment I say, 'Look at who you used to be.'" A knock came on the door. "2 minutes, Ms. Leavitt." She gave one final glance at her reflection in the mirror, blonde hair pulled back, eyes sharp and steady, and stepped toward the curtain. Behind it, Robert was already charming the crowd, pacing the stage like a Broadway titan, soaking in the energy. She didn't care. He was playing a part. She was living a cause, and as the countdown reached 0 and the music swelled, Karoline Leavitt gripped the microphone in one hand and her conviction in the other, ready to turn this debate into a battleground and perhaps a coronation. Out on the stage, beneath the floodlights of the University of Texas auditorium, Robert De Niro stood tall in a tailored black suit, his silver hair slicked back, eyes glittering beneath the overhead beams like a man born for this very moment. The applause was scattered, thunderous from the left side of the audience, subdued and tense from the right. A few students in the front row wore pins, symbols of Robert's high-end hospitality brand, while others raised smartphones ready to clip and tweet his every word. Jordan Kimball, the poised host of Voices of America, extended a hand toward him. "Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome actor, activist, and truth-teller, Robert De Niro." The camera panned slowly as Robert took center stage, microphone in hand. His expression was calm, almost paternal, but the glint in his eyes hinted at the storm to come. He didn't wait for the applause to fade. "I'm not here to mince words," he began, his voice smooth, deep, and resonant, echoing with the same theatrical weight that once made his performances in The Irishman and The Godfather Returns legendary. "Donald Trump is a walking disaster," he said, pausing just long enough for gasps and claps to ripple through the liberal side. "And Karoline Leavitt, his hand-picked, barely out-of-college mouthpiece, isn't a savior, she's a puppet. A Gen Z puppet, a voice for the ventriloquist who broke America in half." The room ignited. MAGA supporters booed, some rising from their seats to shout protests. Liberals clapped and cheered, one woman in a denim jacket yelling, "Tell it, Robert!" Unfazed, he raised a hand, commanding attention like a stage veteran. "I've seen cons like Trump in the movies and on the streets of Little Italy," he continued. "Guys who talk tough but fold when it matters. And now he hides behind a 27-year-old spokesperson who reads the scripts he hands her like gospel." He turned toward the camera, as if addressing Karoline directly from across space and time. "You believe you're some warrior of truth, Miss Leavitt?" he said, smirking. "You can tweet all the Bible verses you want and call it faith, but faith without insight is just noise. And what we've got right now, what this country's got, is a megaphone in heels who can't tell the difference between loyalty and blindness." The crowd was roaring now, but Robert pressed on, voice steady and biting. "You want to know what I think? I think she was chosen because she looks good on camera, because she's young, because she says yes, sir, when Trump snaps his fingers. And now she's here, tonight, pretending she's ready to debate the truth with someone who's lived through 10 presidents, 3 wars, and 40 years of lies." He gestured dramatically to the audience. "You think she can handle that? Please." He paced the stage slowly, deliberately, hands weaving through the air like a conductor's. "She let national strategy leak through a signal chat," he continued, voice rising. "By mistake, maybe. Or maybe that's what you get when you trust a rookie with national responsibility. You wouldn't give a first-semester med student a scalpel during surgery. Why are we giving her the country's microphone?" Then came the theatrical crescendo. Robert turned, voice dropping to a gravelly whisper. "Karoline, I know you're listening back there, and I hope you walk out here, because when you do, don't expect a script to save you. Don't expect applause from your bubble. This isn't Fox and Friends, this is a stage. And on this stage, I don't lose." He handed the mic back to Jordan Kimball with a flourish, a smug grin stretching across his face. The crowd was split in half cheering him as a truth-teller, the other half booing with clenched fists. Backstage, Karoline Leavitt took a breath. The show had started. The moment Robert De Niro handed the microphone back to Jordan Kimball, a slow hush fell over the auditorium, like the breath before a thunderclap. Then the music swelled, dramatic, orchestral, theatrical, and the lights shifted toward stage left. From behind the thick velvet curtain, Karoline Leavitt emerged with a purposeful stride, her navy blue suit cutting sharply against the golden lighting. Her high heels clicked against the hardwood floor in sync with the rising tension, and though she was a full generation younger than the man waiting at center stage, she moved with the poise of someone twice his age and 10 times more focused. The MAGA side of the audience erupted instantly, clapping, cheering, some standing with signs that read "Karoline equals courage" and "Gen Z for truth." Meanwhile, the liberal side hissed, whistled, and scoffed, one student shouting, "Hope you brought your script." Karoline didn't flinch. Her eyes swept the room, once, brief, calculating, absorbing the emotional temperature like a battlefield general, and then locked on to Robert, who was now seated smugly at the center panel table, arms folded, eyes twinkling with theatrical mockery. She walked toward the other podium but paused halfway, microphone already raised, commanding attention before even taking her place. "Mr. Robert," she began, voice steady and clear, "I heard everything you just said, every insult, every dismissal, every smug little jab." She smiled slightly. "You think you can stand here with your Oscars, your luxury hotels, and your Godfather monologues, and reduce me to a puppet? Think again." The studio fell still. Robert raised an eyebrow, smirk still intact, but Karoline gave him no room to interrupt. "You say I read scripts," she said, now taking her place at the podium. "You've lived off them. You say I was chosen because of my age and my looks. Maybe. But I'm not here because I flatter. I'm here because I fight. And tonight, Mr. Robert, I came prepared." With that, she gave a small, deliberate signal to Talia Brooks, positioned in the media booth. A large screen behind them flickered to life. Karoline's eyes didn't leave Robert's for a second. The screen froze on the image of a younger Robert, smiling on CNN. "Let's take a look," she said calmly, "at who you used to be." The screen behind Karoline flared to life, casting a silvery glow across the auditorium walls. The audience collectively leaned in as the video began to play. There was Robert De Niro, seated in a CNN studio in 2016, wearing a gray suit and speaking to Anderson Cooper. His expression was relaxed, his tone earnest. "I like how Obama handles things," he said with a warm smile. "He's smart. He's got vision. A real leader for tough times." The clip cut abruptly, freezing on his smiling face. For a beat, the auditorium was silent. Then came the murmurs. The conservative section erupted into knowing laughter, some even applauding. The liberal side shifted uncomfortably, glancing toward Robert, who sat motionless, jaw clenched, the smugness drained just a notch from his eyes. Karoline's voice rang out like a bell. "That was you, Mr. Robert, praising Obama, the man whose legacy Trump campaigned against, the same Trump who took office and dismantled what he called a broken vision, the same Trump you now accuse of being a tyrant, but you backed the world he changed. So I ask again, who's the puppet?" Her words weren't shouted, but delivered with calm, surgical precision. The auditorium pulsed with energy. Even Jordan Kimball, the moderator, raised his eyebrows slightly, sensing the shift in momentum. She stepped forward, no podium, no notes, just the microphone in her hand and the weight of her presence. "You called me childish, naive, unqualified, but what do you actually know about my work?" Her tone tightened slightly, just enough to sting. "You referenced the signal leak. Yes, it happened. It was a mistake by a junior staffer on my team, and I took responsibility. I briefed the president personally, and the protocols were revised within 24 hours. That's what leadership looks like, not blaming others, not grandstanding on cable news, but fixing what's broken." Robert shifted in his chair, trying to maintain composure, but the tension in his jaw betrayed him. Karoline saw it and pressed in. "You said I only speak when Trump gives me a script. Let me clarify something for you. I've worked for him since I was 20 through campaigns, press offices, and now the West Wing. I don't need a script to know what I believe. I believe in border security. I believe in economic growth. I believe that this country deserves strength, not someone who performs toughness in movies while sipping champagne at new lounges in Beverly Hills." That one landed. Audible gasps swept the room. A few MAGA supporters stood to cheer, drowning out jeers from the other side. Robert raised his hand as if to interject, but Karoline didn't stop. "And you mock my faith. You say I pray to justify the unjustifiable. No, Mr. Robert, I pray because this job is heavy, because I face threats, slander, and pressure every day, and I do it without hiding behind studio lights or characters. I don't need Oscars. I need clarity." Her voice never wavered, even as she stepped closer to Robert's table, close enough now that the two figures on stage became a visual metaphor. Old guard versus new wave, cinema versus statecraft. "You play gangsters," she said quietly, "but I walk into rooms where real power lives, where lives are at stake. You gave speeches to camera lenses. I brief national security with generals on hold. You want to talk about toughness? Try sitting across from a widow of a fallen soldier and telling her the truth. Try going on air after an attack and keeping the nation calm. That's toughness." For the first time since the debate began, Robert looked unsure. He leaned back slightly, as if trying to find his next performance cue, but there was no director, no script to rely on. Just Karoline Leavitt, standing tall and unwavering. "And let's be honest," she added, her voice softening just enough to sharpen the blow. "You're not angry at me because I'm unqualified. You're angry because I'm effective. Because a 27-year-old with no Hollywood credits, no art house glamour, and no legacy name just exposed the one thing you fear most, that the culture is slipping out of your hands. That your speeches don't carry the weight they used to. That America is listening to new voices now. And one of them is mine." The room detonated. Cheers, boos, whistles, all at once. Phones shot up, screens lit with Karoline 1, Robert 0, hashtags already appearing on X and Instagram. Robert sat frozen, eyes blinking slowly, mouth slightly open but empty of words. His next move had to be precise, but Karoline had just raised the bar so high, it would take a miracle to clear it. She returned to her podium, calmly, smoothly, as if she'd merely read a press release. But her final glance toward Robert was unmistakable. A look not of contempt, but pity. The look of a lioness who knew the roar had ended and only silence remained. For a few eternal seconds, Robert De Niro said nothing. The auditorium buzzed with electricity. Half the room on their feet, MAGA hats waving, chants of "Karoline, Karoline" breaking out like aftershocks. The other half sat stunned, watching the Hollywood icon sit back in his chair as if the wind had been knocked out of him. His jaw worked, but no words came. Finally he leaned forward, one elbow on the desk, the microphone shaking slightly in his hand. "You think you're clever, kid," he growled, voice deeper than before but strained, more gravel than thunder. "You think reading my old clips makes you some kind of prophet?" His eyes narrowed. "I've fought bigger liars than you. Trump's not the first, and he won't be the last." But something had shifted. The certainty, the swagger that had defined Robert's opening monologue was gone, like a spotlight had been turned off inside him. Karoline didn't respond, just tilted her head slightly, waiting. The silence after his remark lingered. Then, as if desperate to reclaim momentum, Robert stood abruptly. "You want to talk about scripts?" he said, gesturing wildly. "You've been living off one since college. You're Trump's megaphone, that's all. A headline, a distraction in heels." A few cheers trickled from the liberal side of the crowd, but the applause was scattered, hesitant. Karoline didn't even flinch. She leaned forward into her mic and said calmly, "You've spent your entire life reading from other people's words, Mr. Robert. I write mine." That was the crack in the dam. Laughter erupted from the MAGA section. Someone shouted, "She got you, Bobby!" Phones rose again, capturing every micro-expression as Robert's face turned beet red. He tried to recover. "Don't get cocky with me," he barked. "I built my name from nothing. I grew up in Little Italy, not some Fox News internship program. I've got Oscars. I've got restaurants. What do you have?" Karoline didn't hesitate. "A future," she replied. The line detonated. Jordan Kimball blinked in surprise, looking down at his notes like they were suddenly irrelevant. The crowd roared. On the giant screen above the stage, a live feed showed tweets already going viral. "She said she has a future. This is lethal." Another had already spliced her words into a GIF, overlaying a slow zoom on Robert's reddening face with the caption, "When the script ends and the truth begins." Robert tried one last lunge. "I've stood outside courthouses. I've spoken to real people about real issues. You just hide behind press releases and tweets. You're a puppet of a dangerous man." He was shouting now, voice cracking slightly. "You pray for strength? I pray for the country to wake up." Karoline, still calm, still rooted to the floor, offered a tight, almost sympathetic smile. "Then maybe it's time someone else led the prayer." That did it. The laughter wasn't just from one side now, it rippled across even the neutral seats. Some liberals looked away, visibly uncomfortable. Others whispered, clearly realizing that their champion was losing not just the debate, but the room. And then came the final blow. Karoline turned toward the camera, the audience barely settling. "You mentioned the Alto Nights," she said. "Your last film. Budget, $80 million. Losses, $40 million. The crowd gasped. "You mocked my judgment, but maybe you should ask yourself, if you can't even get America to show up for your movie, why should it listen to your politics?" Robert stared at her, stunned. His hand hovered above the mic like he couldn't decide whether to hold it or throw it. Behind him, a large screen, still synced to social media, flashed with a meme already trending. A freeze frame of his flushed face with the words, "Box Office Bob just got canceled by Gen Z." He sat down slowly, no longer fueled by fire but weighed down by the realization of what had just happened. For the first time in his long, decorated career, Robert De Niro had become a punchline. Meanwhile, Karoline simply stepped back, posture relaxed but eyes unblinking. She didn't gloat, she didn't smirk, She just let the silence hang and let the internet do the rest. Within minutes, clips were spreading like wildfire across X and Instagram. Karoline owns Robert trended within 15 minutes. A meme of Robert in his taxi driver role, face edited red, with the caption, "You talking to me? Yeah?" and "She buried you?" hit 250,000 likes before the debate had even ended. Jordan Kimball attempted to steer the program forward, but everyone knew the night had already reached its crescendo. Robert sat back, the swagger gone, his hands clenched on the table as if holding on to the last pieces of his legacy, and beside him, the 27-year-old press secretary, dismissed as a puppet only an hour earlier, stood, unshaken, commanding the spotlight not because of who she represented, but because of what she had just done. By the time Jordan Kimball rapped the final question and thanked the crowd for attending Voices of America, the real event had already shifted off stage and onto every major social media platform in America. Within seconds of Karoline Leavitt's mic drop moment, "I have a future," the internet exploded. The first clip uploaded by a conservative student journalist showed Karoline's poised delivery, followed by Robert De Niro's stunned silence. It hit 100,000 views in under 10 minutes. Hashtags like "Leavitt frees Robert" and "Kill Robert's Cane," "Killer Karoline" surged to the top of trending lists on X, Instagram Reels, and even TikTok. MAGA influencers reposted the clip with captions like, "That's how you shut down a relic," while Gen Z commentators dubbed her the future face of conservative grit. One viral post stitched Karoline's now commodic stare into the camera with footage of Robert fumbling his retort, overlaid with dramatic music and the caption, "When the actor runs out of lines." A meme featuring a photoshopped movie poster titled "The Last Scene," starring Karoline Leavitt as herself, made its way onto Reddit's front page in less than an hour. Political pundits joined in fast. Charlie Kirk tweeted, "Karoline Leavitt just redefined political debate, not with rage, but with receipts. That was a masterclass." His tweet was reposted over 70,000 times. Even Fox News' official account chimed in, posting a clip of Karoline saying, "You've played gangsters, I face real ones," with the caption, "Press Secretary, Prodigy, Powerhouse." But it wasn't just conservatives. The viral explosion sparked civil war among liberals online. Some of Robert's longtime fans defended him. "He's 81. He's a legend. That wasn't fair." Others were more honest. "Love the man, but he walked into that one." A well-known Democratic strategist admitted on MSNBC, "Look, I don't like who she works for, but she wiped the floor with him tonight." The fallout spread fast and wide. YouTubers uploaded reaction videos within the hour. One popular channel titled their segment, "Robert Destroyed by Gen Z Press Secretary. Is this the end of Hollywood politics?" In the video, the host pauses repeatedly, stunned. Yo, she called him out on the Alto Nights losing $40 million on national TV, cold-blooded. That specific moment, Karoline's ice-cold delivery of "Why should America listen to your politics when it won't even show up to your movies?" became the debate's defining line. It was clipped, captioned, slowed down, remixed into hip-hop and lo-fi beats, even turned into a ringtone. Robert's team, sensing the narrative slipping fast, attempted to respond. From the backseat of his black SUV outside the venue, Robert posted a tweet, "Karoline Leavitt is arrogant. Trump is still the threat. I didn't lose, I just spoke truth." But the ratio was instant. The first reply, with 18,000 likes, read, simply, "You lost, go retire." Another viral reply showed a still of his flushed face under the caption, "When the method acting fails." By midnight, even Donald Trump weighed in on Truth Social. Karoline Leavitt was outstanding tonight, took down Robert and the fake news elites with class and power. Very proud. The comment fueled even more media coverage, with Fox and Friends opening the next morning show under the headline, "Gen Z Roars, Karoline Leavitt Reshapes the Battlefield." The internet had decided. Karoline hadn't just survived a battle, she had won the war for perception. And in the digital age, perception is power. The sun had barely risen over Washington, D.C. when the impact of the Karoline Leavitt versus Robert De Niro debate came into sharp focus. What first appeared to be a viral moment quickly evolved into a cultural and political turning point. Within 24 hours, the media establishment and political elites were reeling. Leavitt hadn't just delivered strong talking points, she had redefined political dominance in the digital era, where control of narrative is everything. Inside the White House, the mood was euphoric. President Donald Trump reportedly watched the full segment from the residence, cheering like it was Super Bowl Sunday, according to aides. His post on Truth Social, Karoline Leavitt was fantastic. A fierce warrior for America, Robert got drained, received massive engagement, eclipsing many of his recent policy updates. Internally, Leavitt's credibility skyrocketed. Even skeptics like Stephen Miller admitted they were stunned by her performance. She didn't just defend the administration, one insider told Fox News, she took full control of the conversation. At her next press briefing, Leavitt faced a packed room. Reporters from CNN to Variety were in attendance, many more interested in the fallout than policy. When asked if her performance changed anything, she smiled and said, "I faced Robert De Niro on live television. I think I can handle a few follow-ups." The room chuckled, but behind the laughter was a shift. She had earned their respect. Meanwhile, Robert De Niro struggled to recover. His follow-up interview with CNN was intended to reset the narrative, but instead highlighted his disconnection. Slumped in his chair, visibly exhausted, he insisted she was clever, but Trump's still a danger. "I haven't changed." But the internet wasn't buying it. The YouTube comment section turned brutal. "You got played by a 27-year-old Bob," one user wrote. Headlines reflected the tone. A New York Magazine article bluntly stated, "She beat him, full stop." Even liberal commentators were forced to acknowledge the loss. Variety wrote, "Robert thrived in fiction, but Leavitt brought the script to him, and politics doesn't do retakes." Leavitt's "I have a future" line was turned into a TikTok anthem, overlaid with thunderclaps and the phrase, "This is how you end an era." Gen Z conservatives rallied behind her. She wasn't just a press secretary anymore. She had become the face of a movement. Talk of a Senate run or future governorship, once fantasy, now circled serious circles. Charlie Kirk tweeted, "Karoline didn't just go viral, she led. She didn't represent Trump, she represented the future." Breitbart echoed, "The day a Gen Z star was born." But this wasn't just political. It struck at Hollywood's waning influence. For decades, celebrities like De Niro shaped public narratives, but Leavitt's cutting line, "You've played gangsters, I face real ones," landed like a generational gavel. It wasn't just an insult, it was a shift. The days of Hollywood's unchecked voice over middle America were done. And at the center of that shift stood Karoline Leavitt. No longer the girl hand-picked by Trump, no longer mocked as a puppet. She emerged as Killer Karoline, the sharp-tongued press secretary who didn't flinch, who didn't falter, and who turned the spotlight onto a legend and left him speechless. As the stage lights dimmed and the noise faded, one thing remained. This wasn't just a debate, it was a new chapter in the American political playbook. And Karoline Leavitt had written it herself. The story of Karoline Leavitt's public clash with Robert De Niro teaches a powerful lesson about the evolving nature of influence, truth, and generational power. In a world where legacy and fame once guaranteed dominance, this moment proved that preparation, clarity, and authenticity now carry the greatest weight. Leavitt, a 27-year-old press secretary, dismantled a Hollywood titan not with rage or personal attacks, but with facts, conviction, and composure. She reminded us that youth is not a weakness when paired with strategy, and that experience, while valuable, cannot substitute for relevance. Robert underestimated his opponent, relying on past prestige instead of present adaptability, and paid the price. The story also highlights the double-edged sword of social media. In today's world, perception moves faster than policy, and one sharp sentence can shift the national mood. Most of all, it reinforces a timeless truth. Never assume power belongs to those who once held it. It belongs to those who know how to wield it now. Whether in politics, business, or everyday life, the lesson is clear. Prepare, speak with purpose, And never underestimate the strength of a well-timed truth in the hands of someone who refuses to be silenced.